I noticed that on my discharge paper it said that I was born in White, Arkansas. Now, the ones of you who don't know, White is almost a no more to be place. It used to be a little village which was named after my grandfather, and of course, since it was the olden days when I was born, it was still recognized as White, and that's the name that's on my birth certificate. For one thing, I grew up before, during, and after the Great Depression. My earliest memory is when I was 3 years old, and I remember being in a boat with my dad in the water. I guess that's on my mind because we have so much water right now with all this. And we paddled up to a house, and I remember very well being in the boat. I know it was 3 years when I was 3 years old because the flood of 1927, and I was born in 1924. And there was we had an old rooster up on a table that was sitting on the porch. The porch was underwater. Part of the table legs were underwater, and the rooster was on the table. But as we pulled up to him, he flew. I repeat that, the rooster flew up to a tree. We backed out, he came back in. We pulled in to get him, he flew to the tree. I guess any 3-year-old would remember that. His name was Robinson Crusoe. My father was, I guess we would say, a farmer. We were fortunate enough to have what you might call our cash crop, because the farming was not much a money crop. It was more like for food and things like that. But my daddy had a job, I don't know what you would call him, but he provided cross ties for the Crossett Lumber Company and their railroad. I'm not real sure who he worked for, whether it was the Crossett Lumber Company or a railroad company. But when I was 11, my dad died, and that left my mother with a family of children. One thing that came to my mind right just this minute that I hadn't even thought about for a long time is that because of the depression was it was coming in and things were bad, I learned when my dad died, I heard elders talking about it, that he had just had to drop a life insurance policy for a great big $1,000. And that was just another sad story of the Depression. And so my mother did just odd jobs that women could do, which was very limited. Over the years, she waited tables. The first job, I think, though, that she had after my dad died, she never worked out before then, was in some kind of cafeteria, and she worked there for a while. Then later, she managed a shoe store and just worked just in sales and things. I had one sister who was married. Oh, by the way, my oldest sister finished high school in 1931, and that was quite something for a girl to do in 1931. Okay, I had a twin brother, and we could take all this time talking about us, but I'll only tell you that my dad was named James. Oh, my dad was the best man. Our pastor told me after he died, he said, "Your dad was the best man I've ever known." Okay, I had finished high school in 1941, and as you know, we were already in the European War, even though we had not declared war, but we were helping our friend England, and the Allies And then my first job, by the way, I was a telephone operator. And the younger people just have to find out what a telephone operator does. But then people got, and of course the Pearl Harbor then in that year in December, and then everyone got interested in the war. Times were changed. The whole country seemed like were very patriotic. I know there was a few naysayers, you know, who wanted to keep our toys and stay home, but mostly people were eager to help for the war effort. And what the people could do was, for one thing, we had to give up some materials like steel and nylon and things for the war effort. One big thing that was different, women began to take jobs that formerly were not considered good for women. Women did not do those things. But with the shortage of the male muscle, the women in our country learned that we can do lots of things. So along about I graduated in 41, about 1942, some of my friends, the guys had gone to the war, and some of the girls had gone to cities, larger places, to work in what we call, well, in a way, they took jobs in military installations, and I mean, though they had nothing really to do with the military, some of those jobs. But now, personally, anyway, I thought, what am I going to do? Well, people have told me that I was always just quite an independent person. So I thought, I'm going to St. Louis. I've heard of a Curtiss Wright aircraft factory there that makes airplanes. I'm going there and get a job. So I asked 3 of my friends. I asked a dozen of my friends. 3 decided to go with me. And we caught the old Sunshine Special train and rode all night to St. Louis. Did not know one soul there, not one. We got there in that big city. No Aunt Sue to call, no Uncle John, no one. We were just there. But we went to we got a job at Curtiss Wright Aircraft Factory, and we built airplanes. We all got jobs in the machine shop. The first job, grant you, was not too much like a machine shop. We were on what was called the burr bench. Now, I say all this coming up to how I happened to be in the military. But I thought, I'm going to join the military. I'm going to do some real war work. So, by that time in St. Louis, the 3 girls who'd gone with me had become homesick. So I was there. But I had made some friends by then, and I was quite comfortable there to stay there, but I wanted to be in the military. So I tried to went to the recruiting office to join the Marine Corps, and I was turned down, hurt my feelings. They wouldn't take me because I'm colorblind. But the Navy was right there, right next door, right in the same building, almost in the same office. So of course, they just snatched me up, made me feel good. So I joined the Navy. And none of my friends wanted to go with me, so I went. So boot camp was at Hunter College in New York, of course, which had been turned into the boot camp for Navy women. And then from there, I was sent to service school. I suppose, I don't know how I happened to get into the Postal Service, except that they gave you 3 choices, and I put down the third one. I mean, I got the third one, and someone had told me, whatever you want, put it the third, that's what you'll get. I don't believe that, but in my case, it was true. But I didn't, there was nothing that I just particularly wanted, nothing that I was particularly fitted for, except build airplanes. But I went to service school, postal service school. I think it was 3 months, and we learned some more Army facts and figures and rules and customs and so forth, and also some postal stuff. Okay. My job, of course, was in postal service. And yes, it was in a post office, but it was not your regular routine post office. In fact, the public didn't come in at all. There was the doors were locked 24 hours a day. There was a guard on every entrance. But the mail got treated. Now, I guess one thing that was important. One thing that was important about my job, everything I guess was important. But where I worked, we had to get the mail going to the right place. If you mailed a letter to John Doe on USS Southwest, say, or wherever you mailed it to, you probably addressed it either APO New York or APO San Francisco, or FPO New York, FPO San Francisco. That's Army Post Office or Fleet Post Office. But that address wouldn't get that mail very far without us. So we had access to not only where the ships were, but where they were going. Later, though, and not too long ago, I was thinking about it, and I thought, you know, I bet when those servicemen get back home from wherever they've been, you know, on their ships or in their foxholes on the front lines or wherever, you know, that when they get back to their home base, that they're as happy to get a letter from home, more so maybe than to get a new rifle. And I thought, we're going to win the war. I never had a doubt that we would win the war. And I thought, we're going to win it no matter what I do. It's going to be over. And I don't want to say, I wish I had. Mm-hmm. And I said, now, even today, I'm happy to say, I'm glad I did, instead of saying, I wish I had.